Maya Chen pulled the trigger of her plasma rifle for what she hoped would be the last time. The Krillian war machine collapsed in a shower of sparks and molten metal, its death screams echoing across the barren landscape of Kepler 442b. Around her, the sounds of battle faded as the last enemy forces retreated into their underground tunnels. At 17 years old, Maya had spent 3 years fighting in humanity's first interstellar war. She had earned 12 commendations, led successful missions on 4 different planets, and saved countless lives. The Alliance brass called her a hero. Her squad called her Ghost because she could move through enemy territory like smoke. But right now, all she wanted was to go home. The ceasefire came 2 weeks later. Maya stood on the deck of the transport ship Perseverance, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. The blue marble looked exactly as she remembered from her childhood, before the Krillians attacked the outer colonies and every able-bodied human had been called to serve. She touched the neural interface behind her ear, the small device that had connected her to military networks and enhanced her reflexes during combat. Tomorrow it would be deactivated. Tomorrow she would be just another civilian. Nervous about going back? Asked Lieutenant Rodriguez, joining her at the viewport. He was one of the few soldiers from her original unit who had survived the war. Should I be? Maya replied, not taking her eyes off Earth. I mean, how hard can high school be after fighting alien death machines? Rodriguez laughed, but there was something sad in his eyes. You might be surprised, Ghost. War's got rules. Teenagers don't. Maya thought he was joking. She realized her mistake on her first day at Jefferson High School in suburban Denver. The building looked like a fortress to her trained eyes, but instead of defensive positions, she saw bottlenecks and ambush points. Instead of potential cover, she saw tactical disadvantages. Her hand instinctively moved toward her hip, where her sidearm used to rest. The morning started badly when she arrived at 0600 hours, expecting to begin her day. The security guard, a bored-looking man named Carl, informed her that school didn't start until 8 a.m. Maya spent 2 hours sitting in her mother's car, watching students arrive and analyzing their movement patterns out of habit. When she finally entered the building, the chaos hit her like a physical blow. Hundreds of teenagers moved through the hallways with no apparent organization or objective. They clustered in random groups, blocking corridors and creating unnecessary noise. Maya's enhanced hearing, still sensitive from years of listening for enemy movements, picked up every conversation, every laugh, every slam of lockers. The sound was overwhelming. Her first class was AP Physics. Maya had studied advanced propulsion systems and energy weapon mechanics during the war, so she assumed this would be easy. But when Mrs. Patterson began explaining basic velocity equations, Maya found herself thinking about ballistic trajectories for railgun rounds. When a classmate asked about momentum, Maya started to describe how Krillian armor deflected kinetic projectiles before catching herself. Miss Chen? Mrs. Patterson was staring at her. Would you like to share your thoughts with the class? Maya realized everyone was looking at her. In combat, attention like this usually meant someone was about to die. Her pulse quickened. No, ma'am, sorry. The teacher's expression softened slightly. I know you're new here, dear. We've all heard about your service, but this is a civilian classroom. We keep things simple. Maya had helped design targeting systems for orbital bombardment platforms. She had calculated hyperspace jump coordinates under enemy fire. She had jury-rigged quantum communicators using spare parts and determination. Simple felt like an insult. Lunch was worse. The cafeteria reminded Maya of the mess halls on military ships, but without any of the order or efficiency. Students fought over seats, wasted food, and complained about everything. Maya sat alone at a corner table, mechanically eating a sandwich while scanning for potential threats. Old habits, you're the war girl, right? Maya looked up to see 3 students standing by her table. The speaker was a tall boy with perfectly styled hair and an expensive jacket. Behind him, 2 others watched with the predatory interest Maya recognized from soldiers looking for entertainment. My name is Maya, she said carefully. Brad Hutchinson, the boy said, not extending his hand. My dad's a senator. He says you child soldiers were just a publicity stunt. Says real Marines did all the actual fighting. Maya's training kicked in. Assess the threat. Identify escape routes. Determine objectives. But this wasn't a combat situation, she reminded herself. These were just ignorant children. Your father's entitled to his opinion, she said, taking another bite of her sandwich. Must be nice, though, one of Brad's friends added. Getting to skip school, play with guns, then come back and act like a hero. Maya's hand tightened on her sandwich. She thought about her squad leader, Sergeant Williams, who had died holding off Krillian shock troopers so civilians could evacuate. She thought about Private Kim, who had been only 16 when a plasma blast turned him to ash. She thought about the nightmares that still woke her up screaming. "I wasn't playing," she said quietly. Brad leaned closer. "Oh, really? Prove it. I bet you can't even fight without your fancy military gadgets." Maya stood up slowly. In the silence that followed, she could hear her own heartbeat, steady and controlled. Around them, other students had stopped talking, sensing drama. This was exactly the kind of situation her reintegration counselor had warned her about. "You don't want to do this," Maya said. Brad grinned. "What are you going to do? Cry? Run to the principal?" Maya studied his stance, his balance, the way he held his shoulders. Amateur, untrained, soft. She could disable him in 3 different ways before he knew what was happening. She could break his arm, collapse his windpipe, or simply knock him unconscious with a precisely applied blow to the temple. Instead, she picked up her tray and walked away. Behind her, she heard Brad's friends calling her names, questioning her courage, making jokes about cowardly soldiers. Each word hit like a physical blow, but Maya kept walking. This wasn't a war zone. These weren't enemy combatants. They were just children who had never seen real violence, never lost friends to alien weapons, never had to make life or death decisions before they were old enough to drive. But as Maya left the cafeteria, she realized something that chilled her more than any battlefield. She was starting to understand why some veterans never successfully reintegrated into civilian society. The war had changed her in ways she was only beginning to comprehend, and high school was proving to be a different kind of battlefield entirely. The nightmares started on Maya's 3rd night home. She would wake up gasping, her room spinning as her enhanced reflexes searched for threats that weren't there. The silence felt wrong. For 3 years, she had fallen asleep to the hum of spaceship engines or the distant rumble of artillery. Her bedroom in suburban Denver was too quiet, too peaceful. Her parents tried to understand. Her mother, Dr. Lisa Chen, was a pediatric surgeon who had spent the war years treating refugees. Her father, David, had worked in weapons manufacturing for the war effort. They loved her, but they looked at her like she was made of glass, like she might shatter if they said the wrong thing. "Maybe you should talk to someone," her mother suggested over breakfast on Friday morning. "Dr. Martinez specializes in veteran reintegration." Maya poked at her eggs. Military rations had been nutritionally balanced but flavorless. Her mother's cooking was the opposite. Rich, complex flavors that sometimes overwhelmed her adjusted palate. "I'm fine, Mom. Honey, you woke up screaming again last night. And yesterday you spent 20 minutes checking all the door locks." "That's just good security protocol," Maya mumbled. Her father looked up from his tablet, where he was reading news about the ongoing peace negotiations with the surviving Krillian colonies. "Maya, you're not in the service anymore. You don't need protocols. You need to learn how to be a teenager." But Maya wasn't sure she remembered how to be a teenager. She had been 15 when the war started, barely old enough to think about boys and college applications. Now she was 17, had killed enemy soldiers, had watched friends die, had made command decisions that affected thousands of lives. How was she supposed to care about homework and school dances? At Jefferson High, her reputation was growing. Some students whispered about her when she walked past. Others tried to befriend her, fascinated by her military background. A few, like Brad Hutchinson, seemed determined to prove she wasn't as tough as everyone claimed. Her second encounter with Brad came during gym class. Coach Henderson had divided the class into teams for a capture the flag exercise. Maya found herself leading a team of misfit students, the quiet kids, the outcasts, the ones usually picked last. Across the gymnasium, Brad commanded a team of popular athletes. "This should be easy," Brad announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Our little soldier girl can show us her special forces training." Maya ignored him and gathered her team. She looked at their faces, nervous, uncertain, expecting to lose. On the battlefield, she had worked with soldiers just like this, scared kids far from home who needed someone to believe in them. "Listen up," she said quietly. "This isn't about being the strongest or fastest. This is about tactics, teamwork, and using your advantages. Everyone here has skills the other team doesn't expect." She turned to Jenny Martinez, a small girl with thick glasses who always sat alone at lunch. "You're good at math, right? I need you to calculate optimal angles for our defensive positions." To Marcus Webb, a lanky boy who spent most of his time reading, "You know this school better than anyone. Find us unconventional routes to their flag." For the first time since returning home, Maya felt like herself. This was something she understood. Taking a group of individuals and forging them into a unit. She divided her team into specialized roles, established communication protocols, and developed a multi-phase strategy that would have impressed her old commanding officers. The game began. Brad's team charged forward with overwhelming force, exactly as Maya had predicted. Meanwhile, her team executed a series of coordinated movements that confused and frustrated their opponents. Jenny's mathematical calculations allowed them to set up perfect ambush positions. Marcus guided small strike teams through forgotten maintenance corridors. Within 10 minutes, Maya's team had captured the opposing flag while losing only 2 players. Brad's team, despite their physical advantages, had been completely outmaneuvered. "How did you do that?" Coach Henderson asked afterward, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Every soldier is valuable if you use them correctly," Maya replied. "It's not about individual strength. It's about making the whole team stronger than the sum of its parts." The victory felt good, but it also created new problems. Word spread quickly through the school about Maya's tactical genius. Some students were impressed. Others, particularly Brad's friends, seemed angry that their social hierarchy had been challenged by an outsider. The real trouble started in her American history class. Mr. Thompson was discussing the causes of World War II when a student named Ashley raised her hand. "Mr. Thompson, Maya was in the war. Can't she tell us what it was really like?" Maya felt every eye in the classroom turn toward her. Her enhanced hearing picked up whispered conversations, elevated heart rates, the shifting of bodies in chairs. The attention felt hostile, predatory. "I'd rather not," Maya said. "Come on," Brad called from the back of the room. "You're always acting so mysterious. Tell us about the glorious war." "Brad, that's enough," Mr. Thompson warned. But other students picked up the chorus. They wanted war stories, battle descriptions, heroic tales. They wanted entertainment. Maya's hands began to shake slightly, not from fear, but from anger. "You want to know about war?" she said, standing up. The classroom fell silent. War is watching your friends die while you're powerless to save them. War is making decisions that get people killed and living with that guilt forever. War is being 15 years old and shooting someone in the face because if you don't, they'll kill everyone you care about. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Several students looked pale. Ashley, who had started the whole thing, stared at her desk. "War isn't glorious," Maya continued. "War is necessary sometimes, but it's never glorious. It's messy and horrible, and it changes you in ways you don't understand until you try to come home and realize you don't fit anywhere anymore." She sat back down, her heart racing. The classroom remained quiet for several minutes before Mr. Thompson gently steered the discussion back to historical causes and effects. After class, Maya hurried toward her locker, wanting to escape the stares and whispered conversations, but Ashley caught up with her in the hallway. "Maya, I'm really sorry," the girl said. "I didn't mean to—" "It's fine," Maya interrupted, opening her locker and grabbing her physics textbook. "No, it's not fine. I was being stupid. My brother's in the Marines, stationed on Mars now. He told me some things about the war, but I never really thought about what it meant." Maya looked at Ashley more carefully. The girl seemed genuinely upset, not just embarrassed. "What did he tell you?" "That the worst part wasn't fighting the aliens. It was coming home and trying to pretend everything was normal when nothing felt normal anymore." Maya closed her locker and leaned against it. For the first time since starting school, someone was talking to her like a person instead of a curiosity or a threat. "Your brother's smart," Maya said. "What's his name?" "Tommy Martinez. He was at the Battle of Proxima Station." Maya's breath caught. She remembered Proxima Station, a desperate last stand that had saved the inner colonies but cost thousands of lives. "I was there too. Different unit, but I remember the Marines. They saved a lot of lives that day." Ashley's eyes widened. "Really? Maybe you knew him?" "Maybe. The Marines were the reason any of us made it off that station alive." For a moment, they stood together in the busy hallway, two people connected by the vast, terrible experience of war. Then the bell rang and Maya had to rush to her next class, but something had changed. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. 2 weeks into her civilian education, Maya discovered that high school had its own complex warfare, just without the explosions. The social dynamics reminded her of alliance politics between different human colonies, shifting loyalties, unspoken rules, and consequences for breaking protocol. She was beginning to understand the battlefield when the incident happened. It started during lunch on a Tuesday. Maya had found a corner table where she could sit with her back to the wall and observe the cafeteria's social ecosystem. Ashley Martinez had started joining her occasionally, along with Jenny from gym class and a quiet boy named Derek who was in her physics class. "I still can't believe you made Brad's team look like amateurs," Derek was saying, picking at his sandwich. His dad donated money for the new gymnasium. "Brad's not used to losing at anything." "Everyone loses sometimes," Maya replied. "Learning how to handle defeat is more important than winning." "Try telling that to Brad," Ashley muttered. "He's been telling everyone you cheated somehow. Says no way a girl could outthink his strategy." Maya was about to respond when commotion erupted near the lunch line. Raised voices, the sound of something crashing to the floor, then a scream that made Maya's combat instincts flare to life. She was moving before her conscious mind processed what was happening. Her enhanced reflexes, trained through 3 years of warfare, took over. Time seemed to slow as she analyzed the situation while crossing the cafeteria. A sophomore boy named Kevin was on the ground, convulsing. His face was turning blue and there was foam around his mouth. Students backed away in panic, some pulling out phones to record rather than help. A girl who had been sitting with Kevin was crying and shaking his shoulders. "He's allergic to peanuts," she screamed. "Someone call 911? Maya dropped to her knees beside Kevin, her training kicking in. She had seen this before. Severe allergic reactions during field operations when soldiers ate unfamiliar alien vegetation or were exposed to foreign compounds. "Move back. Give him space," she ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to command. The crowd of students obeyed instinctively. "Ashley, call 911 now. Jenny, find the school nurse." Maya checked Kevin's pulse, rapid and weak. His breathing was severely restricted. She could see hives spreading across his neck and face. Without immediate intervention, he would die within minutes. "Does he have an EpiPen?" she asked the crying girl. "In his backpack, but I can't find it." Maya spotted Kevin's backpack under a nearby table where it had been kicked in the chaos. She grabbed it and dumped the contents, finding the auto-injector among scattered homework and textbooks. But Kevin's condition was deteriorating rapidly. His breathing had almost stopped and his lips were turning purple. Maya had seen this progression before in combat medics who had been exposed to Krillian bioweapons. She had seconds to act. She tore open Kevin's shirt and located the injection site on his thigh, just as she had been trained to do with emergency medical supplies during the war. The EpiPen activated with a sharp click, delivering its dose of epinephrine directly into his bloodstream. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then Kevin gasped, his breathing becoming less labored. Color began returning to his face, though he remained unconscious. "Is he going to be okay?" the girl asked. "The epinephrine will help, but he needs professional medical attention," Maya said, monitoring his pulse. The allergic reaction could return once the medication wears off. Paramedics arrived within minutes, guided by Ashley, who had stayed on the phone with the 911 operator. They took over Kevin's care, asking Maya quick questions about what she had observed and what treatment she had provided. "You probably saved his life," one of the paramedics told her as they prepared to transport Kevin to the hospital. "Quick thinking and proper technique. You have medical training?" "Combat medic certification," Maya replied. "Basic emergency response." As the ambulance left, Maya became aware that the entire cafeteria was staring at her. But this time the attention felt different. Instead of curiosity or hostility, she saw respect and gratitude in many faces. "That was incredible," Ashley said, appearing at her elbow. "You just saved Kevin's life." Maya looked around at the scattered contents of Kevin's backpack, the concerned faces of students and teachers. Anyone with basic first aid training could have done the same thing. "But they didn't," said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Brad Hutchinson approaching, his usual arrogant expression replaced by something that might have been respect. Everyone else was just standing around with their phones. "You actually did something." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of sarcasm or mockery, but found none. "It's what anyone should do." "No," Brad said quietly. "It's what a soldier does. What someone who's actually seen real life and death situations does." He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. I owe you an apology. I've been giving you grief because I thought you were just showing off, trying to make the rest of us look bad. But you're not, are you? This is just who you are now. Maya didn't know how to respond. In her experience, bullies rarely showed genuine remorse or insight. My grandfather was in Vietnam, Brad continued. He used to tell me that war changes people, makes them see what really matters. I never understood what he meant until right now. The conversation was interrupted by Principal Hendricks, who had arrived to assess the situation. After talking with witnesses and the paramedics, he approached Maya. Miss Chen, I understand you provided emergency medical assistance to Kevin Williams. Yes, sir. The paramedics said your quick actions likely prevented a fatality. On behalf of the school, I want to thank you. He paused, studying her face. I also want to discuss something else. We've had several teachers mention that you have exceptional leadership and tactical thinking skills. Have you given any thought to what you want to do after graduation? Maya blinked, surprised by the question. Since returning from the war, she had been so focused on adjusting to civilian life that she hadn't thought much about the future. I'm not sure. Sir, there are several programs that might interest you. ROTC scholarships, military academies, emergency management programs. Your combination of combat experience and natural leadership abilities is quite rare. As Principal Hendricks walked away, Maya found herself surrounded by classmates who wanted to thank her, ask questions, or simply be near someone who had done something genuinely heroic. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt something she hadn't experienced since leaving the service. Purpose. Ashley appeared beside her again. How does it feel to be a hero twice before you turn 18? Maya considered the question seriously. Scary, she said finally. Because now I know I can't just blend in and pretend to be a normal teenager. People are going to expect things from me. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Ashley suggested. Maybe normal is overrated anyway. That afternoon, Maya walked home thinking about Principal Hendricks's words. She had been so focused on leaving the war behind that she hadn't considered bringing the best parts of her military experience forward. Her training, her leadership skills, her ability to stay calm under pressure. These weren't burdens to overcome. They were tools she could use to help others. For the first time since coming home, Maya began to think that maybe she didn't need to choose between being a soldier and being a civilian. Maybe she could be something new entirely. News of Maya's heroic actions spread beyond Jefferson High School. The local newspaper ran a story about the veteran student who saved a classmate's life. The headline read, War hero continues serving at home. Maya hated the attention, but it brought unexpected opportunities. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Ashley's aunt and the head of emergency medicine at Denver General Hospital, contacted Maya personally. She offered a position in the hospital's youth volunteer program, specifically in the emergency department, where Maya's medical training and crisis management skills would be valuable. We need people who can stay calm under pressure, Dr. Martinez explained during their meeting. Most teenagers freeze up when confronted with medical emergencies. But you've already proven you can handle life or death situations. Maya accepted the position, partly because she needed something constructive to do with her free time, but mostly because helping people felt like the one constant between her military life and civilian existence. Her first shift at the hospital was on a Saturday morning. Dr. Martinez paired her with a registered nurse named Carlos Rodriguez, a former Army medic who had served in the early days of the Crimean conflict. I heard about you from my cousin, Carlos said as they walked through the emergency department. Lieutenant Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion? Maya stopped walking. Rodriguez? From the Perseverance? He was on my transport home. Carlos grinned. Small universe. He told me to look out for a young soldier having trouble adjusting to civilian life. Said you were one of the best tactical minds he'd ever worked with. Having a connection to someone who understood her background made the hospital work easier. Carlos didn't treat her like a curiosity or a child playing at being an adult. He respected her training while teaching her the differences between military and civilian medical protocols. The work itself was challenging but familiar. Maya helped comfort patients waiting for treatment, assisted nurses with basic procedures, and occasionally dealt with crisis situations that required her unique background. When a 5-car accident brought multiple trauma victims to the emergency room, Maya's ability to prioritize treatments and coordinate resources proved invaluable. But it was a seemingly routine evening shift that changed everything for Maya. She was restocking supply cabinets when a commotion erupted in the waiting room. Raised voices crying, the sound of chairs being knocked over. Maya immediately moved toward the disturbance, her training automatically assessing potential threats. In the waiting room, she found a man in his 30s holding his young daughter while arguing with the triage nurse. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, was pale and shaking. Her father was agitated, speaking rapidly in what Maya recognized as Portuguese. "Sir, I need you to calm down," the nurse was saying. "I understand you're worried about your daughter, but I need to understand what's wrong with her." The man continued speaking in Portuguese, gesturing frantically at his daughter. Maya could see his frustration growing as the communication barrier prevented him from getting help for his child. Maya approached carefully. During the war, she had learned basic phrases in dozens of languages, including Portuguese from Brazilian colonial militia units she had worked with. "Posso ajudar?" she said quietly. "Can I help?" The man's eyes widened with relief. He began speaking rapidly, explaining that his daughter had eaten something at school and was now feeling sick. She had stomach pain, nausea, and was running a fever. He was a recent immigrant. His English was limited, and he was terrified that his daughter was seriously ill. Maya translated for the nurse, helping to complete the triage assessment. The little girl had food poisoning, nothing life-threatening, but she needed IV fluids and medication for the nausea. Within minutes, the medical staff had the situation under control. "Thank you," the father said in accented English, tears in his eyes. "I was so scared and no one understood." Maya knelt down to the little girl's level. "Como você se chama?" "What's your name?" "Isabella," the girl whispered. "Isabella. The doctors are going to make you feel better, okay? You're very brave." The girl smiled weakly and squeezed Maya's hand. Dr. Martinez had witnessed the entire interaction. Afterward, she pulled Maya aside. "Where did you learn Portuguese?" "Military training. We worked with coalition forces from all over human space. Basic language skills were part of the job." Dr. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "How many languages do you speak?" Maya shrugged. "Conversational level in about 8 languages. Basic emergency phrases in maybe 15 more. When you're coordinating with different colonial militias, communication is essential for survival." "Maya, would you be interested in expanding your role here? We frequently have patients who don't speak English well, especially recent immigrants from the outer colonies. Having someone who can bridge that communication gap would be incredibly valuable." Maya considered the offer. "What would that involve?" "Additional training in medical interpretation, more hours and more responsibility. It would also look excellent on college applications, especially if you're considering a career in medicine or public service." The idea appealed to Maya more than she expected. Her language skills were another tool she could use to help people, another way to serve without wearing a uniform. That evening, Maya returned home to find her parents waiting in the kitchen with serious expressions. For a moment, her heart raced. Had something happened? Was there news from the war front? "Sweetheart, we need to talk," her mother said gently. Maya sat down, preparing for bad news. "We got a call from Dr. Martinez," her father said. "She told us about your work at the hospital, about how you're helping patients and using your military training in positive ways." Maya relaxed slightly. "Am I in trouble?" "The opposite," her mother said. "We're proud of you, but we're also concerned that you're taking on too much responsibility too quickly. You're still adjusting to civilian life." Maya looked between her parents. They had been walking on eggshells around her since she came home, treating her like she might break at any moment. "Mom, Dad, I need you to understand something," she said carefully. "I'm not the same person who left for the war 3 years ago. I can't go back to being a normal teenager because I've seen too much, experienced too much. But that doesn't mean I'm broken." Her father leaned forward. "We know you're not broken, honey. But you've been through trauma that most adults never experience. It's normal to need time to process that." "I am processing it," Maya said. "But sitting in a bedroom in suburban Denver thinking about what I've lost isn't helping. Working at the hospital, using my skills to help people, finding ways to serve, that's what helps. That's what makes me feel like myself again." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "We just want you to have a normal life, to be happy." Maya reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "This is my normal now, and I am happy when I'm helping people. The war took a lot from me, but it also gave me skills and perspective that I can use to make a difference. Isn't that worth something? Her parents exchanged a look that Maya couldn't quite interpret. What if we supported your work at the hospital? Her father said slowly, but also insisted that you talk to someone about the adjustment issues you're facing, someone who specializes in helping veterans. Maya considered this. She had been avoiding therapy, partly out of stubbornness and partly out of fear that talking about the war would make the nightmares worse. But she was beginning to realize that healing didn't mean forgetting or pretending the war hadn't happened. It meant finding ways to integrate her experiences into a life worth living. Okay, she said, but I want to keep working at the hospital. And I want to take on the interpreter training. Her mother squeezed her hand. Deal. That night, for the first time since coming home, Maya fell asleep without checking the locks twice. She dreamed not of battles and explosions, but of a little girl named Isabella smiling as her fever broke, and a grateful father saying thank you in a language Maya had learned in the service of something larger than herself. Maya's first therapy session with Dr. Elena Vasquez took place on a Thursday afternoon in a small office filled with plants and comfortable chairs. Dr. Vasquez specialized in veteran reintegration and had worked with soldiers returning from the Crimean conflict for the past 2 years. I'm not here to fix you, Dr. Vasquez said during their initial meeting. You're not broken. But transition from military to civilian life creates unique challenges, especially for someone who served at such a young age. Maya sat stiffly in the chair across from her, uncertain how to begin. Everyone keeps telling me I need to talk about the war, but talking about it won't bring back the people who died or change what happened. You're right. Talking won't change the past, but it might help you understand how those experiences are affecting your present and future. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward slightly. Tell me about your biggest challenge since coming home. Maya thought for a moment. Feeling like I belong anywhere. At school I'm too serious, too adult. At home my parents treat me like I might shatter. At the hospital I feel useful. But it's still not the same as having a unit. People who depend on you and understand what you've been through. That sense of belonging to something larger than yourself is common among veterans. Military service creates strong bonds and clear purpose. Civilian life can feel chaotic and meaningless by comparison. Over the following weeks, Maya found herself looking forward to her sessions with Dr. Vasquez. They talked about survivor's guilt, about the difficulty of forming relationships with people who hadn't shared similar experiences, about the challenge of finding purpose in a world that seemed obsessed with trivial concerns. But therapy was only one part of Maya's evolving life. At Jefferson High, her reputation had fundamentally shifted. Students no longer saw her as an outsider trying to fit in. Instead, she was becoming a leader, someone her classmates turned to when they needed help or guidance. The change became clear when a crisis hit the school itself. It started on a Monday morning when rumors began circulating about budget cuts that would eliminate several programs, including the music department and most sports teams. Students were angry and frustrated, but they didn't know how to respond effectively. They can't just cut music, Ashley said angrily during lunch. Half the kids in this school are only here because of band or choir or drama club. And what about football? Added Derek. The team was actually good this year. They make it to state championships and then get cut. Maya listened to the complaints swirling around the cafeteria. The students were passionate but disorganized. Their anger was justified, but without coordination it would accomplish nothing. What are you going to do about it? She asked. What can we do? Ashley replied. We're just students. Adults make decisions and we have to live with them. Maya set down her sandwich and looked around the cafeteria. She saw frustrated teenagers who cared deeply about their school, but felt powerless to change anything. It reminded her of colonial militias she had worked with during the war, passionate fighters who needed organization and strategy to be effective. You're wrong, Maya said quietly. Students aren't powerless. You just need to approach this like a military campaign. Brad Hutchinson, who had been listening from a nearby table, moved closer. What do you mean? Maya stood up and grabbed a napkin, sketching a quick diagram. First, you need intelligence. Who makes these decisions? When are they being made? What's the real reason behind the cuts? Second, you need allies. Which teachers, parents, and community members support these programs? Third, you need strategy. Protests might make you feel better, but organized advocacy gets results. You think we could actually change their minds? Jenny asked. I think you have more power than you realize. but only if you work together and think strategically. What happened next surprised Maya. Instead of dismissing her ideas or making jokes about military tactics, her classmates began asking serious questions. How do you research budget decisions? How do you organize a campaign? How do you present a compelling argument to adults who don't take teenagers seriously? Within days, Maya found herself leading an unofficial student coalition to save the threatened programs. She organized research teams to gather information about the school's finances and the decision-making process. She established communication networks to coordinate between different student groups. She even helped draft a presentation for the school board that included cost-benefit analyses and alternative funding proposals. The work reminded Maya of coordinating multi-unit operations during the war, but instead of planning attacks on enemy positions, she was planning a campaign to save music and sports programs. The skills transferred perfectly. The same analytical thinking, the same attention to detail, the same ability to motivate people toward a common goal. I can't believe you got the debate team and the football players working together, Ashley marveled one afternoon as they prepared materials for the school board meeting. Those groups have hated each other for years. Common enemies create strange alliances, Maya replied, stapling packets of financial documents. During the war, I saw corporate executives fighting alongside farm workers when the Krillians threatened their colony. Shared threats have a way of clarifying what really matters. The school board meeting was held on a Thursday evening in the auditorium. Maya had expected maybe 20 students to show up. Instead, she found herself looking at nearly 200 teenagers, along with parents, teachers, and community members who had been mobilized by the student campaign. Maya wasn't supposed to speak at the meeting. The plan was for class president Sarah Kim to present their research and proposals. But when Sarah froze at the podium, overwhelmed by the crowd and the formal setting, Maya stepped forward. "My name is Maya Chen," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. 3 months ago, I was a soldier fighting in humanity's first interstellar war. I've seen what happens when communities fall apart, when people give up on the things that make life worth living. The auditorium fell silent. Even the school board members leaned forward to listen. "These programs you want to cut aren't luxuries," Maya continued. "They're what make this school a community instead of just a building. Music gives students a way to express emotions they can't put into words. Sports teach teamwork and perseverance. Drama club shows kids they can become anyone they want to be." She gestured toward the students filling the auditorium. "Look around this room. These teenagers organized themselves, researched complex budget issues, and developed practical solutions to funding problems. They did this because they care about their school and their community. That's exactly the kind of civic engagement we should be encouraging, not cutting." Maya presented the students' alternative funding proposals, their research into grant opportunities, and their volunteer commitments to reduce operational costs. She spoke for 15 minutes, addressing each board member's concerns with facts and figures her teams had prepared. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. But Maya was more interested in the board members' faces. They looked surprised, impressed, and perhaps a little embarrassed that a group of teenagers had done more thorough research than their own staff. The vote wasn't close. The board unanimously agreed to implement the students' alternative funding plan and preserve all threatened programs. Afterward, as students celebrated in the parking lot, Principal Hendricks approached Maya. "That was remarkable leadership," he said. "Have you given any more thought to your future plans?" Maya looked around at her classmates, students who had been strangers just months ago but were now part of something she had helped create. "Actually, I have. I want to study public policy and international relations. I want to learn how to build bridges between different communities, how to solve problems through cooperation instead of conflict." "Any particular schools in mind?" "Georgetown has a good program. So does Fletcher School at Tufts. I've been looking at places that value real-world experience as much as test scores." Principal Hendricks smiled. "With your background and demonstrated leadership abilities, I think you'll find those schools very interested in you." That night, Maya walked home thinking about the strange journey that had brought her to this point. 6 months ago, she had been a soldier returning from war, unsure where she belonged in a peaceful world. Now she was discovering that the skills she had learned in combat, leadership, strategic thinking, the ability to unite people around common goals, were exactly what her community needed. She was beginning to understand that her war experience hadn't disqualified her from civilian life. Instead, it had prepared her for a different kind of service, one that could help prevent future conflicts and build stronger communities. For the first time since coming home, Maya felt like she had found her mission. Spring arrived in Denver with the gradual warmth that Maya had forgotten during her years aboard starships and military bases. She was walking across the Jefferson High parking lot after her hospital shift, when she noticed the crowd gathered around the flagpole. As she got closer, Maya could see that someone had organized an impromptu memorial. Photos, flowers, and handwritten notes were arranged around the base of the flagpole. Students stood in small groups talking quietly or simply standing in respectful silence. "What's happening?" Maya asked Ashley, who was standing at the edge of the crowd. "Tommy Rodriguez was killed in action yesterday," Ashley said, her voice barely a whisper. "My brother, the one you knew from Proxima Station." Maya felt the words hit her like a physical blow. Tommy Martinez, not Rodriguez, Ashley's brother, the Marine who had helped save Proxima Station 3 years ago. The war was supposed to be over. The ceasefire had held for 8 months. How? Maya asked. Krillian holdouts attacked a peace negotiation site on Kepler 438c. Tommy was part of the security detail. Ashley's eyes were red from crying. They said he died protecting the civilian negotiators. Maya stared at the memorial, seeing photos of a young man in Marine dress uniform, remembering the desperate fighting at Proxima Station where Marines like Tommy had held the line, while evacuation ships escaped. The war was supposed to be over, but soldiers were still dying. "I'm sorry," Maya said, knowing the words were inadequate. "He was going to come home next month," Ashley continued. "We had plans. He was going to teach me how to drive his motorcycle. We were going to go camping like we used to when we were kids." Maya understood that particular pain, the future that would never happen, the conversations that would never occur, the person-shaped hole that nothing could fill. She had lost friends to war, but losing someone to a conflict everyone thought was finished felt different, crueler somehow. Over the following days, Maya watched Ashley struggle with grief and anger. The memorial at the flagpole grew larger as more students added tributes, not just for Tommy, but for all the local young people who had served and died in the war. Maya found herself spending her lunch period sitting by the memorial, sometimes talking with other students, sometimes just keeping silent vigil. It was during one of these quiet moments that she overheard a conversation that changed everything. 2 seniors, students Maya barely knew, were standing near the memorial discussing their post-graduation plans. "I was thinking about joining the Marines," one of them said. "You know, finish what people like Tommy started." "Are you crazy?" the other replied. "The war's over. Why would you volunteer for that?" "Because it's not really over, is it? There are still Krillian holdouts, still attacks happening. Someone needs to keep the peace." Maya found herself standing up, walking toward the 2 boys before she consciously decided to intervene. "Excuse me," she said. "I couldn't help overhearing. You're thinking about military service?" The first boy, whose name she thought was Marcus, nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Yes. I know you were in the war. What do you think?" Maya looked at Tommy's photo among the memorial flowers, then back at Marcus. "I think you should understand what you're volunteering for. Military service isn't about glory or finishing fights. It's about serving something larger than yourself, protecting people who can't protect themselves, and being willing to sacrifice everything for causes you believe in." "That's what I want to do," Marcus said earnestly. "Then don't just join the military," Maya said. "Prepare yourself. Learn languages. Study diplomacy. Understand the cultures you might be deployed to protect. The best soldiers I knew were the ones who could prevent fights, not just win them." The conversation stayed with Maya for days. She realized that her own future plans, studying public policy and international relations, were part of the same continuum as military service. Both were about protecting and serving others, just through different methods. That realization crystallized when Dr. Vasquez asked her a simple question during their next therapy session. "What do you want your life to stand for?" Maya had been expecting questions about nightmares or adjustment difficulties. This broader question caught her off guard. "I want to serve," she said without hesitation, "but I want to serve in a way that prevents wars instead of just fighting them." "Tell me more about that." Maya thought carefully before responding. During the war, I saw what happened when diplomacy failed. I saw entire colonies destroyed because people couldn't find ways to communicate, to understand each other, to solve problems without violence. I want to be part of preventing that. How? By building bridges, by learning how different cultures think and communicate, by helping create systems that resolve conflicts before they become wars. Maya paused. I used to think my war experience was something I needed to overcome to have a normal life. Now I think it's something I need to integrate into a life of service. Dr. Vasquez smiled. That sounds like someone who's found their mission. The validation felt important, but Maya's real confirmation came from an unexpected source. She was working at the hospital the following weekend when Carlos Rodriguez approached her with a serious expression. Maya, I need to tell you something about my cousin, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Maya looked up from the supply inventory she was completing. What about him? He died last week. Same attack that killed Tommy Martinez. He was leading the security detail. The inventory clipboard slipped from Maya's hands. Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had joked with her on the transport home, who had told her that teenagers didn't follow rules the way war did, another friend lost to a conflict that was supposed to be finished. I'm sorry, she said, the familiar inadequacy of words in the face of loss. He left something for you, Carlos continued, pulling an envelope from his pocket. He asked me to give this to you if anything happened to him. Maya opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a short letter in Rodriguez's handwriting. Maya, if you're reading this, then the war isn't as over as we hoped. I wanted you to know that watching you transition from soldier to civilian gave me hope for all of us. You figured out how to serve without wearing a uniform, how to lead without carrying a weapon. Don't let anyone tell you that your military experience was a detour from your real life. It wasn't preparation for something else. It was preparation for everything else. Use what you learned. Help others the way you've been helping your classmates and patients. The galaxy needs people who understand both war and peace. Be one of them. Stay strong, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Maya read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Rodriguez had seen something in her transition that she was only beginning to understand herself. Her war experience wasn't something to overcome or set aside. It was a foundation to build upon. That evening, Maya sat at her desk and began writing her college application essays. Instead of minimizing her military background or trying to present herself as a typical teenager, she wrote honestly about her experiences as a veteran seeking to serve in new ways. She wrote about learning that leadership meant making others stronger, not proving your own strength. She wrote about discovering that the best victories were the ones that prevented future conflicts. She wrote about understanding that true service meant using whatever skills you had to help others, whether in a war zone or a high school cafeteria. 6 months later, Maya received acceptance letters from Georgetown, Tufts, and 4 other schools she had applied to. But more importantly, she had received something else, a clear sense of who she was and what she wanted to become. At her high school graduation, Maya was chosen as the student speaker. Standing at the podium, looking out at her classmates and their families, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. When I came home from the war, she said, I thought I was leaving one life behind and starting another. I thought I had to choose between being a soldier and being a civilian. But I've learned that the best parts of military service, protecting others, working as a team, serving causes larger than yourself, those aren't military values. They're human values. She looked at Ashley in the audience, still grieving her brother but working with Maya to establish a scholarship fund in Tommy's name. She saw Brad Hutchinson, who had become one of her closest friends and was planning to study conflict resolution in college. She saw Jenny and Derek and dozens of other students who had learned that they could make a difference when they worked together. My fellow graduates, Maya continued, we are the generation that grew up during humanity's first interstellar war. We've seen what happens when communication fails, when fear overcomes understanding, when communities turn against each other. But we've also seen what's possible when people work together, when they refuse to give up on each other, when they choose service over selfishness. Maya paused, thinking of Lieutenant Rodriguez and Tommy Martinez and all, the others who had died protecting the possibility of peace. The war taught me that the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, it's creating a world where there don't have to be enemies in the first place. That's our mission now. not as soldiers but as citizens, as leaders, as human beings who understand both the cost of conflict and the value of peace.